You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hello, and welcome to episode 199 of the Soulforge podcast. Kinda, sorta, maybe.
Welcome to the Soulforge, a place of silent mystery, quiet contemplation, and outright mayhem. Join your host, Shawn as he guides you through the adventures of living. Together, we'll talk about life and love, sex and dating, joy and heartache, memories and loss, and so much more. Don't worry, it's not nearly as pretentious as it sounds. Get ready for life, the universe, and everything on the Soulforge.
Hey gang, welcome back to another exciting episode of Soulforge podcast, kinda sorta maybe. What we have this week is the final episode of the Rusted Robot podcast. This episode originally aired this past Sunday on the Rusted Robot podcast feed. Basically, what I wanted to do was spread this message as far and as wide as I possibly could. So I figured because I've spent almost 7.5 years working on the Rusted Robot podcast, and it all comes down to this one final episode detailing the complete history of the podcast, everything I went through to produce the show, all the celebrity encounters, and more fun stories beyond what that entails right there. So what I'm doing is putting it in the Soulforge feed because I spent almost 5 hours editing this thing Sunday evening. And I just wanted to share it with my Soulforge listeners. Now, many of you also listen to the Rusted Robot podcast, so this will be kind of a rehash for you, a repeat. But for those of you on the Soulforge who don't listen to Rusted Robot, this is a treat. It's not about pop culture. It's basically a Soulforge episode in expanded form. So it is longer than what you'd expect from a regular Soulforge episode because most Rusted Robot episodes are an hour long, and this one here happened to be about 1 hour and 20 because I had so many clips and feedback to put in that it's just jam-packed with all kinds of goodness, all the things that I'd never get to use again. So I figured it was time to put it in this episode, and this week I'm sharing it on Soulforge as well. So stay tuned, sit back, get ready to listen to something exciting. The only thing I forgot to mention in the episode when it came out on Sunday was talking about my co-host Josh, and he's been my co-host since January 2016, and I like to rib him, give him a hard time about his Star Trek fandom because he loves all the original stuff, but he doesn't like Discovery or any of that stuff that recently came out. But the other thing that I forgot to mention is that he is huge into anime, and I love to tell him that no, it's just cartoons. And so that's a thing I forgot to mention that is a lot of fun working with Josh. So anyway, basically, what I'm going to do is I've already edited that show. I'm just going to lead right into it, and you're going to hear exactly what everybody else heard. And that's basically it. So if you have any feedback, if you have any questions, anything at all, you know that you can just reach me at soulforgepodcast@gmail.com. But next week, we'll have a more exciting episode for you. It's if everything works out, it's going to be spectacular. So sit back, stay tuned, and prepare to be entertained.
You're listening to the Rusted Robot Podcast, the #1 rated robot-related podcast in northeastern Ontario.
Hey there, welcome to the final episode of the Rusted Robot Podcast. I'm not going to tell you what day it is because it really doesn't matter, does it? No, it doesn't. I am here to do a rundown of everything that we've accomplished over the last 7+ years. So first, let's get into a little bit of history of the podcast, how it began, and all that kind of good stuff. Now, many of you who are longtime listeners, maybe listeners from the very beginning, will know all of this stuff, but not all of you will. So let's talk about the name, the Rusted Robot. Where did that come from? Well, in about 2005 or 6, can't remember exactly when, I was going to open up a comic book shop here in Timmins. But I didn't have the money, I didn't have the knowledge, and I didn't really think it would fly here in town because, as you know, Timmins is the land that culture forgot. But I had registered the business, my buddy Andrew had created the logo of the robot for me, and the name came from a play on the comic book shop down in Toronto and Ottawa, the Silver Snail. And I liked the alliteration, I liked the image of a color and a thing, so I thought, the rusted robot. That's alliteration. It's kind of a color. Rust is a color, right? And a robot is a thing. So rusted robot. And I looked for suppliers and all kinds of different things, locations around town. And I guess fear kept me from doing it. I didn't actually end up opening up a comic book shop. And then years passed. And in 2012, I got a secondhand iPod and I decided to download some podcasts because people at work had said, hey, have you ever listened to a podcast? And I said, I don't know what a podcast is. But I got the iPod. I did a little bit of research, found a couple podcasts. I think one of the first ones I found was Dork Trek and Treks in Sci-Fi and Trekcast and a few other ones like that. So that was the summer of 2012. I listened to all kinds of different podcasts for about a year. And then I said to the wife at the time, I said, hey, how would you like to start up a podcast with me? So in about October of 2013, I started looking into it, created a Twitter account, all kinds of stuff. Looked up equipment that we would need, software, all the fun things that you needed. And then we talked about it for a few months, and I believe it was January 1st, 2014, that we released our very first episode. So, for about 90 episodes, the Rusted Robot podcast was the Shawn and Brigitte Vanderloo show. And it went pretty well, except at the end of 2014, things started to get rough and the marriage wasn't doing too well. And by February of 2015, we had split up. But we still recorded the podcast, and I didn't actually move out until, I think, May of 2015. And even so, we still tried to record podcasts together. And we went into September of 2015. Where it became unfeasible to continue podcasting together for all kinds of reasons. Now, one of the things that you may not know about podcasting is it can be a very intimate experience. And oftentimes, Brigitte and I would make out or make love after recording an episode, and that wasn't going to happen anymore, and it was awkward, and she started seeing somebody else, and so I had to call it quits. So at that point, after 90 episodes, of which she had probably been on maybe 75 or 80 of them, it was time to figure out what I was going to do. So episode 90 was the last one that we did together. And then I took about 4 months off. I had to regain my mental health. I had to find out who I was without her and all that kind of fun stuff. And you probably heard most of that on the Soulforge podcast that I do as well. During those 4 months, I really missed podcasting, and I didn't want to give it up, but I didn't know how to continue. So I talked to my friend Kitty, who worked at... Had she opened up the comic book shop by that point? She worked at the bookstore, and then she moved over and opened up her own comic book shop, Jump City Comics, as you all know. And she said that her husband might be interested in being a co-host. So we talked about it, and sure enough, Josh joined the podcast. And so it was the Shawn and Josh show from episode 91 all the way to, let's see, that would have been sometime January of 2016. And the last time he was on the show was December of 2020. And then the pandemic really hit, and there was lockdowns, and we couldn't do it anymore. So over the past 4 months, the first 4 months of 2021, it was just me and whoever I could get to be a co-host. So a lot of Lonely Shawn episodes, a lot of random co-host episodes, all because I felt it was important to bring you guys and girls all the pop culture entertainment that I possibly could. What this episode is going to entail is all of the clips that I can find and stuff in here that I won't be able to ever use again, like all the celebrity encounters, such as this one here from Larry Nemeczek.
Hey, this is Dr. Trek, Larry Nemeczek, and you're listening to The Rusted Robot with Shawn and Josh and the Rust.
Who actually turned out to be the first guest celebrity that we interviewed on episode 8, and then by episode 13, I got to interview Robert J. Sawyer.
Hi, I'm Hugo Award-winning science fiction writer Robert J. Sawyer, and you're listening to the Rusted Robot Podcast. Hi, my name's Robert J. Sawyer. I'm an award-winning science fiction writer, and you're listening to the Rusted Robot Podcast. Don't forget to follow them on Twitter.
And there's a couple of clips from him. And then on episode 17, we interviewed Sina Grace, who was a comic book artist/author that Brigitte really liked. And he actually gave us 5 different little voice clips. So I'm just going to play them all right here.
Hi, this is Sina Grace, the artist of The Little Depressed Boy, and you are listening to the Rusted Robot Podcast. Hi, this is Sina Grace, a talentless hack, and you are listening to the Rusted Robot Podcast. Hi, this is Sina Grace, writer and artist for Burn the Orphanage, and you are listening to the Rusted Robot Podcast. I hope you're having fun. Hi, this is Sina Grace, the artist of The Little Depressed Boy, and you are listening to the Rusted Robot Podcast, which, by the way, you should be following them on Twitter and totally subscribing on iTunes. Hi, this is Sina Grace, the artist of The Little Depressed Boy, and you are listening to the Rusted Robot Podcast, which, by the way, you should be supporting on all social media and iTunes.
And okay, so that was a lot of fun. So why am I ending the podcast, you might be asking yourself? Well, that is a very good question indeed. I'm glad you asked. So what happened was my idea for the podcast was basically to provide as much information and entertainment as I could in about an hour. So that meant interviews, it meant pop culture news, it meant as many clips as I could possibly put in. You know, like every time I say 2 weeks.
Excuse me? 2 weeks.
I put in that clip right there from Total Recall, and it's become a running thing over these last pile of years. Not only did I do those kind of things, I also put in songs at the end, and sometimes in the middle, but the problem was, this was before Spotify had come along, and I didn't think about copyright issues or anything like that. So about a month ago, I got an email from Podbean, who hosts our website. They said, oh, your episodes 64 and 74 have copyrighted material, and Universal Music Group is upset, so your account is suspended for 3 days until you remove those episodes or edit out the copyrighted material. So I did, and everything was okay for about a day and a half. And then I got another one for episode, I think, 116. It had some song in it or something. And because it was a second violation of copyright strikes, 14 days the account was suspended for. So during that time, I removed about 95% of the episodes. So if you look at therustedrobot.podbean.com right now, there's about 25 episodes. I think there's episode 330, which is the last one that I did, and then a bunch between 1 and 40, the early days. And I've got to say, I listened to a bunch of them to see if there was any copyrighted material in it, and the sound quality is horrible. How you people stuck with me all that time through all the growing experiences and learning processes and all the garbage, I don't know, but I definitely appreciate it. That's for sure. So what else would I add in there? Well, anything that I could. So like when I would talk about Star Trek, for example, or even not talk about Star Trek, but the number 47, when the number 47 came up, I would put in this clip right here.
47.
47.
47.
47.
47.
47.
47.
47.
47.
No!
That I got from the guys at This Week in Trek podcast. Just putting as much information and little clips and YouTube snippets and anything that I could just to give you some fun. So not just straight talk for an hour or so, but clips, trailers, anything that I could find. So that's what I did, but not realizing that one day the podcast would be on Spotify and the copyrighted material would be picked up by algorithms that I had no control over, and my account would be suspended. So now I have one strike left against me, and if anything happens, then the account gets permanently deleted. So I figured the best way to handle this was to get rid of pretty much all the episodes, take them all off of there, and do this final one for you here, and give you as much entertainment as I could in this final episode. So just looking at the website right now, I've currently got, as of this recording, 74,464 downloads. So that roughly averages to about 10,000 per year. Obviously, there was way more downloads at the very beginning of the podcast. Like, for example, episode 1 has 269 downloads, but it actually had 450 extra before I edited it for sound quality years and years ago. Episode 2 has 622, episode 3 has 501, episode 4 has 464, episode 5 has 417, and then it goes like that. There are lots in the 400 range. And before I got rid of everything, actually, the highest episode download content, I think, was episode 211, and there were 720 downloads. And episode 161, Apes Together Strong, had like 695 or something. So I never broke more than 700, but pretty good for a homegrown podcast in the land that culture forgot. So there's not very many episodes left, but the good news is if you follow me on YouTube, as of episode 152, I believe, Podbean allowed us to automatically upload to YouTube. So if you're following my YouTube channel, which is just under my name,
Shawn Vanderloo,
you can actually see probably 75% of the episodes since 152, because for whatever reason, Podbean and YouTube didn't always communicate and not everything uploaded, but there's a ton of them on there. So if you miss any of those episodes, you can always go back and listen to them. Also, I've got all the MP3 files from the very beginning right to now. So if you're ever thinking one day down the future, like, you know what? I would really like to listen to episode 47. Of the Rusted Robot podcast, just email me, because I'm not getting rid of my email, therustedrobot@gmail.com. That's always going to be there. Oh, also the Facebook page. Join the Facebook page and the group, because I'm keeping those. I'm going to keep the celebrity death announcements and the pop culture news active, because just because the podcast isn't around doesn't mean that I don't want to continue with the entertainment and the information. And I might do another robot podcast again later on in the future. We just never know. So before we talk about more of the history and all that stuff, and I've written a bunch of stuff down so I don't forget, because I always forget, I'm going to play a clip here from Jeremy Wilcox of the Fandom Squad podcast, who was kind enough to send us a farewell message.
Hey everyone, this is Jeremy Wilcox of the Phantom Squad podcast. I just wanted to wish a farewell to the Rusted Robot podcast. I've enjoyed every episode, and I'm glad to be a part of it and guest host and be a guest on the Rusted Robot as well. And I wish Shawn all the best in his other future adventures and all the things that he has to do forward from here. And I just want to also thank Shawn for allowing me to be a part of the Rusted Robot, and also thank Shawn for, with the Rusted Robot, getting me into podcasting and starting my own podcast. Rusted Robot has been a staple in my listening of podcasts, and it will be highly missed. But also, I look forward to see what else Shawn has in store for us.
Thanks for that, Jeremy. That was fantastic. Always appreciate listener feedback and all that kind of fun stuff. And let's see what else I've got on my list here. Let's see. Oh, another thing that we used to do at the beginning of the podcast is something called Quirky Starts. And that was where we would take magazine advertisements and just adapt them to the Rusted Robot. And I've got maybe 15 or 20. And what I'm going to do is at the end of the podcast, after the end credits, I am going to play them all in order so you can hear them all for the very first time or the very last time or whatever we want to say that's going to be, because I'm never going to have this opportunity again. So here's another celebrity clip.
My name Alfonso Espinos. I'm the chief editor and director from Studio Comics, and also artist and writer for The Night Spike. And don't forget to keep listening the Rusted Robot podcast.
And wasn't that a lot of fun? And I don't know who I played, because I'll put that in the editing process, and maybe I'll throw another one in right here.
You're listening to WBOT Rusted Robot Radio.
Just because? Why not? Okay, so what else have we got here? Let me see here. Things that I never got to do with the podcast. Well, I interviewed my favorite author. I got to interview some celebrities. The one thing that I always planned on doing for years and years was a fake William Shatner interview. What I was going to do was find a bunch of clips of him talking about random things on YouTube, and then I was going to steal those clips, and I was going to make up my own questions and string together like a 45-minute interview as if I was actually talking to him. Questions would have been like, so Mr. Shatner, when Chris Pine took over the role of Captain Kirk, how did that make you feel? And he would say, I'm Captain Kirk! And that would be hilarious. And then another thing I would ask him is, so in Generations, in your final scene where you die, you say your last words, and those last words are, oh my. Now, how does it make you feel that those are the words that George Takei is known for? That's his tagline, his signature speech. How does that make you feel? And then we would just go on from there, and he would freak out, and he'd say, you can call me Mr. Shatner now, and all that kind of fun stuff, right? So just a funny thing. I was always going to do it, but I never did get around to it, and now I guess I never will. But it was always an idea, and that's basically it. So back to the history of the podcast. Let's see. I started it because, well, obviously I have a love of pop culture. I had a lot of celebrity encounters, actually, which was awesome. So one of the last times I encountered a celebrity was, I think in 2018 or 2019, I can't remember the year, but me and the Klingons went to a Thunder Bay convention, and what's his name? Paul McGillion was there. He's one of the guys from Stargate Atlantis, and another guy from Stargate SG-1 was there, and I was thinking, how can I approach these guys and get them to do some voice clips for the podcast? And I was racking my brain. I was hovering in their vicinity, and then all of a sudden they look over at me, and they wanted a picture with me because me and another guy who happened to be at the show, we looked like the creators of Stargate. Brad Wright and the other guy. I can't remember. And I don't know which one I looked like and which one the other guy looked like. But they said, come here. We want to take our picture with you. And I'm like, okay. If we do that, can I get some voice clips from you for the podcast? And they're like, sure. So I think I took a bunch of recordings from them because they kept messing up. So I'm just going to play them all in sequential order right here. Go.
Hey gang, we're here.
You can start anytime.
Fuck, okay. Dude, I'm
afraid to walk over there.
I know why it's so funny. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Hey gang, this is Paul McGillion, Stargate Atlantis.
Gary Jones, Stargate SG-1, old school.
Thank you very much, Dr. Beckett.
Walter Harriman, gatekeeper.
We're here at Thunder Bay Comic Con, having a great time, and we're with Rusty Robot Podcast. You guys rock. Hey gang, we're at Thunder Bay Comic Con, awesome time. We're Paul McGillion and
Gary Jones from Stargate SG-1
and Stargate Atlantis. Dr. Beckett, thank you very much. And we're listening to the Rusted Robot Podcast.
And isn't that hilarious? I think it's hilarious. And who all did I meet? Let's see. So talked to Larry Nemeczek 3 times, interviewed Robert J. Sawyer once, met him in person actually at DragonCon in 2019, got a picture with him, that was awesome. We interviewed Cena Grace, like I said, met Chris Holden Reed at the convention twice here in Timmins, the local NOE convention.
Hey there, I'm Chris Holden Reed from Lost Girl, and you are listening to the Rusted Robot Podcast. Enjoy.
And in 2014, Brigitte and I went to Toronto for Fan Expo, and we got this clip here from Admiral Adama.
Hi, this is Admiral Adama, Battlestar Galactica, saying, you're listening to the Rusted Robot Podcast. Think about it.
And we also got a clip from Stephen Amell, who played the Arrow on The Arrow Show.
Hey, this is Stephen Amell, and you're listening to the Rusted Robot Podcast. I'm hanging with Shawn and Brigitte right now. They're telling me all about podcasts and general geekery and fun times in Northern Ontario, so keep listening.
That was cool. Also saw Michael Rooker, didn't talk to him. Saw Bruce Campbell, didn't talk to him. Saw Hulk Hogan walking up an escalator or something, didn't talk to him either. Who else did we see there? There was so many. Apparently, Patrick Stewart and Stan Lee were both there as well, but the lineups were huge, so we never did go and visit with those guys. But we did get those 2 cool clips, and we've been using those for years and years. What else is awesome? Well, let's see. In 2015, if you recall, Paul Wright and I, we started up our own podcast on the side, because at the beginning of 2015, when the marriage was breaking up, I said on the air that if anybody needed a co-host for anything, I was going to have some free time, so I would be happy to be a co-host. And Paul reached out to me, and the Sci-Fi Waffle was born, and we did about 40 episodes, and we didn't have a lot of listeners, so that was enough of that. But it was a lot of fun, and we've kept in touch for the last 7 years. And what else happened? Let me think here. Well, why don't we go ahead and we'll play a voice clip from my brother Robin. What does Robin have to say?
Long ago, in a galaxy far away, a podcast was born. Not just any podcast, but a pop culture phenomenon which would leave lasting impressions for a lifetime. It inspired other podcasters alike and would feature notable guests, collectibles, and hours upon hours of entertainment. One of those frequent guests was yours truly, Brother Robin, who would be a long-time listener and first-time caller. Of course, when Brother Shawn started this Rusted Robot podcast in the beginning, our mom and myself would listen to, I think we listened to the first couple episodes together, and then, not long after that, things dramatically changed. But, beyond that, I had great pleasure in assisting early on with the Robin Road Report segments before launching my own podcast, to which we would both frequently join forces together to tackle those big blockbusters and the like. Of course, I didn't do that podcast on my own. My good buddy Whit was also my co-host with the Space Jam podcast. But of course, the Rusted Robot podcast and the Space Jam podcast would collide numerous times together for a crossover extravaganza, and some of the best podcasts episodes I think that I personally had a part in were those ones. Enjoyed those immensely. Now, while my own podcast days have ended, I would still appear sporadically throughout the Rusted Robot podcast, and for that I thank you to the listeners and to Brother Shawn for allowing me that space to continue on. This series had a hell of a run with multiple challenges, but it still persevered. It still persevered. And if this really is goodbye, then my final report comes with glad tidings, for it has been a stellar time. So live long and prosper, Rustedites.
Well, that was a lot of fun, Robin. Appreciate that. That's great. You can always use a voice clip from you. It's been forever since we got a Robin Road Report, but you've been on the show lots off and on, so that was fun. You know what now might be a good time for? Let's play a promo for another podcast right here on the ESO Network.
Here at the Cosmic Pizza Podcast, we make every show from the finest ingredients.
Juicy interviews, fiery film nights, delicious Desert Island DVDs.
And pack it all into a slice of life in every episode.
Order up our specials now from your delivery guys.
Shawn from Canada, Dan from Kent in the UK,
and Paul from near Liverpool in the UK.
Here on the ESO Network.
The Cosmic Pizza Podcast.
Serving you a slice of life.
And of course, that's the Cosmic Pizza Podcast promo that I host with Paul and our other buddy Dan. Speaking of Dan, why don't I read the email that he sent? Let me just pull it up here for all of you fine folks out in podcast land. And he says, thinking about a farewell. Hey, Shawn and the other Rustonauts. It is with a great sadness I write this farewell to a podcast that was there at the beginning of my discovery of internet radio. Back in the before times in 2013, I had just left a job in London, a job that required I not have my mobile with me 24/7 due to various protocols. It was only upon leaving there that I got my first smart device and thought I'd try these iPod broadcastings whilst I tried to find a new job. At first, I found various shows like Nerdist, Kevin Smith's Smodcasts, which were popular and pushed by algorithms. It was the thrill of discovering shows that didn't have that metric to help that led me to a show called 10 Forward, as well as a play on nerds. I began absorbing more and more shows. Then a guest appeared on 10 Forward, Shawn Vanderloo. Shawn announced a Rusted Robot project. It sounded fun, and I hit subscribe, seeing the show had already a number of episodes under its well-oiled cogs. Through a disastrous retail job, I switched to night shifts at a supermarket. I now had the freedom to listen to pods as I stacked shelves. I went back and binged the back catalog of Rusted through solo shows, robot profiles, and new guest hosts. I was able to get my first taste of pop culture on a Sunday, ready to start the week. Professionally, I was just going through the motions to pay the bills. The Rusted shows were my fun escape. It was the easy, relatable style, the calming Canadian voice, and the willingness to chat honestly about all things geek that kept me coming back. Without listening to this show, I wouldn't have been inspired to give my own show a try. He made it seem easy, ya big liar. I was lucky enough to strike up a friendship with Shawn, sending in comments, and he was gracious enough to listen and even read the stupidest ideas I had on the show. Rusted Robot will always be a fond memory. When I didn't know who I was or what I was going to do with my life, I had this fun slice of the #1 related robot podcast in northeastern Ontario. When a favorite show goes away, it's always sad, but I'm glad I get to still hear Shawn every 2 weeks as co-host on Cosmic Pizza and with Soulforge. So whilst the rest may be gone, I'm glad there's more Vanderloo to come. Thank you, Shawn, and to all the fellow Rustonians, I hope to hear you around. Think about it. Dan. And it's not... No, I'm not crying. It's just dusty in here, guys. It's really dusty. So that means a lot, and a lot of sentiments like that. It was really fantastic, and yeah, if it hadn't been for Cena and the 10 Forward podcast, I'm not sure that the thing would have lasted as long as it has, because without her, we wouldn't have gotten all of our British listeners. I wouldn't have made all the connections around the world that I did. And that's the most amazing part of podcasting. All the great people that I've met, either in person or online or whatever. And I just have to thank all of you guys and girls out there for either tweeting, retweeting, just listening, emailing content, reviewing on iTunes or whatever else, sharing links, joining the Facebook group, putting information on the Facebook page, all that kind of stuff, everything. And what I wanted to do actually was write down a whole list of all the people that I wanted to thank, each one individually. But guaranteed, I would forget somebody. And that's the last thing I want to do on my last episode. So, actually, what you guys and girls out there know, you've heard me talk about Richard from Australia for years and years. And he actually sent me a recording. He sent it through my Facebook Messenger, and I tried to download the thing, and I couldn't do it. So what I did was I played it on my phone and recorded it on my new Zoom Handy Pro. So I'm going to play the recording here. Hopefully it's somewhat crisp and clear. If it's not, I apologize. But what are you going to do? Unsubscribe? I think not.
Well, hello to Shawn and all the Rusties out there. This is Brigitte from Australia, otherwise known as Down Under Dick, or Dick Down Under. I get the two confused all the time. I just wanted to make this quick recording to prove that I'm a real person and not a figment of Shawn's imagination, and to thank Shawn very much for all of the work that he's put in over the years on the podcast. I've really enjoyed it. All of the guests, the co-hosts, the interesting topics, the fun topics. Heck, even the Lonely Shawn episodes have been very entertaining, and I've enjoyed all of them, and being a very small part, making the odd comment here or there. I certainly feel part of the family of the podcast, and whatever you do next, along with the Soulforge, I'm sure will be a continuation of everything you've done so far. So I look forward to hearing you more on the Cosmic Pizza and Soulforge, and I'm sure you'll pop up in other places as well. I will miss the podcast, but all good things have to come to an end for whatever reasons. And so thank you again for everything you've done.
And that was fantastic, Richard. I thank you immensely. Down Under Dick, Dick Down Under. We'll still have to do that comic book one of these days. Longtime listeners will get the joke. What else should we talk about here? Let me think here. Well, you know how Josh and Kitty have been around since episode 91. Well, yesterday I got on the Zoom with them because there's a lockdown and we can't meet anybody up in person. So we talked for about 15 minutes or so, and I'm going to go ahead and play that recording for you as well. There's actually an email in there from Sparky and Guns that we discuss. So they haven't been around for a while, but here we go.
This is Sparky.
And Guns.
And you're listening to the Rusted Robot Podcast.
So Josh and Kitty, it's been a while since you guys have been on Rusted Robot Podcast. I'm glad you could join me for the final show. How are you guys?
We're okay. This, the whole situation's bringing us down a bit.
The end of the Rusted Robot or the lockdown COVID situation?
Yes.
Both.
Yeah.
Definitely.
We're glad that we can be here, though.
Yes, I'm glad you could. It's been since December since we were able to record anything. So this is good. So why don't we just talk a little bit about your time as part of the Rusted Robot Podcast? How did it make you feel? What did you learn? All that kind of good stuff.
Okay. So we joined what? 90s? Episode 90s?
Episode 91.
Yeah. So I think we were on long enough that it's more us than not us.
I would agree with that.
It's fun. I enjoyed the constant of having you come over, right?
Yeah.
Kind of set a schedule to it. That was nice because sometimes it's hard just to get with a friend to do stuff. And if you have a standing thing, you can just, oh, no, I have to go do this thing with my friend rather than,
vague plans. Right.
Yeah, we'll hang out sometime.
Yeah, where you just see them on the street and you always go, oh, we should hang out. Yeah, totally. And then you never do.
Yeah, it's true. And I got to tell you, Saturday mornings have not been the same since the lockdown happened and we couldn't get together. So I'm thinking what we're going to have to do is set up a regularly scheduled meetup time again. Maybe once a week, maybe once a month, something like that. And maybe in the future, when things have settled down, we will start a new podcast with a new name that we all started together from the very first time. What do you guys think?
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Josh?
Sounds good.
All right. That's what I wanted to hear. So we just have to wait for COVID to be over if that ever happens.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I wanted to do is I put the word out on Facebook that Rusted Robot was ending. And wouldn't you know it, we got an email today from Sparky and Guns. Can you believe it?
I miss them so much.
Yes. It was a great part of the program. And they would send something in every week for, I don't know how many years they did that for, but then they got busy and they couldn't. So I'm just going to read the message out to, you guys and our listeners and everybody, and then we'll answer their questions. Sound good?
Yes.
Okay. It starts off. It says, thanks, guys. Good day, creaky crank men. Since we last sent in a query, Sparky learned he is in fact not a humble space scrapper, but the clone spawn of evil space politician turned wizard. He didn't like that, so he changed his name, so a guy he knew for a month or so would be his dad. Also a wizard ghost. He has so many questions, but unfortunately, that was the end of his trilogy, so that's all he gets. Guns was drafted to fight in an intergalactic war against insects he's not even sure are bad guys. He needed that guaranteed citizenship so bad, though. He has now become a hero of the Terran Federation and urges you to also become a citizen, because a citizen has the courage to make the safety of the human race their personal priority. The only good bug is a dead bug. Come on, you apes. You want to live forever? It's been a while. Right? They're hilarious. It's been a while, but we just wanted to thank you guys for your years of hard work and entertainment. Though we haven't had the time the last few years to write, you've made some long work drives easier with your commentary and hot takes. You guys are the best, and our last questions are as follows. Sparky wants to know what your thoughts are on current reality TV. Things like The Circle on Netflix, The Dinosaur, The Bachelor, and the hot trash Temptation Island. So we'll pause the reading of the email there and answer those questions. Do you guys watch any of that stuff?
I do not watch reality TV. It's the basis form of television. It just does not deserve to be on television.
I used to really enjoy the original Survivor. And also when you were reading his list, I thought he meant The Dinosaur Bachelor.
Yeah, I don't know what The Dinosaur is. I've never heard of that.
I really want it to be the Dinosaur Bachelor because I would watch the heck out of that.
Yes, that would be awesome. And I've not watched The Circle on Netflix. I don't know what that is. Do you guys?
Nope.
Okay. We don't know what the dinosaur is, but I can tell you I did watch the last season of The Bachelor with Julie because she loves trash TV. I tried not to pay attention too much to it, but it does suck you in because I like spending time with her and that's what she likes. It was weird. It's not something I would watch if I wasn't with her. And we're currently watching this season of Temptation Island, and it's all crap. I don't like any of it, but it's addictive and it's stupid. So that's my
Have
opinion.
you ever seen the cartoon versions of reality TV?
I don't believe so.
There was, what was it, Drawn Together?
Yeah, Drawn Together and Total Drama Island.
Total Drama Island. Those are totally worth watching. They're very silly and very dumb.
I believe it. So the email goes on and it says, Guns asks what your favorite moment in your years of podcasting was and what your least favorite moment or part of podcasting was. And for my part, I've got to say it's all the people that I've met around the world. So many people that I don't even have a list that I can read out because I'll be sure to miss somebody. Also, the best part was meeting all the celebrities and getting those voice clips. And the worst part is probably, well, all the editing and trying to find co-hosts when people weren't available. What about you folks?
Best part? I don't know. I really enjoyed like going and watching movies and reviewing them together.
Yes.
Getting the different takes from you and the other people who popped on. The worst part, I think, is dealing with some people who we thought would be good for the podcast and were not good for the podcast.
It happens.
I think my favorite part was learning about new pop culture things or robots that I wasn't aware of once a week, either through my own research or having it brought up by you guys. I thought that was really fun.
And the worst part?
Constantly having people ask me if I could ask you if they could be on the podcast.
That's hilarious. That's awesome. Okay.
I was like, I don't know. That's not my job.
They could have asked me directly, therustedrobot@gmail.com.
Yeah, it's right there on every episode.
Yeah, we said it every time. And they wrap up their email by saying, good luck in the future. And if there is ever a Snyder cut on Rusted Robot, we will be there to listen to it in its glorious new 4.3.8 hour format, now in black and white. And that's how they end it. So Sparky and Guns, that's awesome. Glad you could make it for the final episode. What else do you guys want to talk about?
When we do another podcast in the future,
yes,
like after COVID times, we have to get Sparky and Guns to be on at least one episode.
For sure we do. Definitely. Are we going to do our Cooking with Gorn episodes?
Oh gosh, we really should. That has to be a video thing though.
It can be.
Yeah. I've always wanted it to happen. And I want to have like somebody in a Gorn suit making a recipe, getting really frustrated at some point, like throwing the thing and ruining the kitchen. And then it just like cuts to a different scene where they're like pulling the finished, delicious, beautiful thing out of the oven. And then they just display it like Vanna White.
Oh, perfect. And I kind of see the Gorn acting like the Swedish chef.
That would be fantastic.
Yes. Now, one thing that we haven't done since December, I think I mentioned it a few times, but I didn't really because, well, you guys weren't a part of it. Tell me about Jump City comic books and collectibles and how that was doing during the pandemic.
Jump City. Timmins, Ontario, Canada. Oh, well, every time we get shut down, it becomes very, very quiet. And there's certain points where I don't even bother to go into work because I just sit around for 4 hours with no customers. We are available for curbside from 11 until 3 every weekday. So that would be nice. And we also have delivery available on weekends right now.
Ooh,
and
delivery.
We got a new machine, so I can even accept debit and credit like from anywhere because it's on cell data. So
right on.
I don't know. Like Jump City's hanging on and we don't intend to go anywhere.
Good.
But, you know, things are not great.
No, I don't think things are great for anybody. But
No.
yeah, because I don't even remember the last time I was in that store. I haven't been anywhere. It's crazy lately.
But to be fair, nobody's allowed in the store right now. Like, it's kind of only employees.
Right, that's what I figured. And what's that address again?
229 Pine Street
No.
South.
No, that's what it was.
That's what it was. What a weird thing to have happen. I'm living in a time loop, guys.
38
We're at
Pine
38
Street.
Pine Street North, Timmins, Ontario, in the lower concourse of the 101 Mall in Canada.
That's exactly right. Solar system, blah blah blah, all that stuff.
Earth, solar system, Milky Way galaxy, local galactic cluster, the universe, the omniverse.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It's been a while since I've had to say that. We're out of practice, but
it'd be so cool if we actually got aliens in the future someday. They'd be like, we've been listening to this podcast and had to come and check out Jump City because they're the only people that thought about us.
That's right.
In space.
It's true. It's very true. And Josh, how have you been keeping busy?
Same old. My job has not been affected. Things still break. People are still idiots. So I still have to take care of things.
Of course.
Oh, he sliced his thumb yesterday helping Jump City build a new window box display.
Ouch.
Yeah. It was a good slice. He bled everywhere.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Full of action.
Yeah.
Too bad it was on camera.
Oh, yeah. I could have recorded it and put it on the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
All right. And anything else you guys wanted to discuss about your history and years of podcasting?
It's kind of hard to sum it all up.
It is.
Right?
Yeah.
It's one of those things that's like, oh, well, it's just the thing we do every Saturday for 2 hours. So it's hard to
okay.
We miss having you over for tea in the mornings.
Yeah, I've been missing you guys a lot, and it's like this is crazy. Can't see each other, can't do anything, and it's pretty awful. And you guys, we've been doing this since the beginning of 2016, so it's been quite the routine.
Yeah. Although Rusted Robot is the first and only podcast I've ever been on, and it was really, really fun to refer to myself once a week as being the guest star, despite becoming kind of a regular co-host.
You've been on 2 other podcasts.
I've been on other podcasts.
You've been on the Soul Forge.
What is the Soul Forge podcast? Join Shawn and his guests as they talk about sex, geekiness, witchcraft, Star Trek, awkward dates, poetry, life, the universe, and everything else. Interviews have included writers, atheists, a rap star from Australia, a reality TV star, and a sex goddess from San Diego. If you have a story to share or just want to listen to one, check out the Soul Forge podcast. The Soul Forge. Let's find out together. That's true.
I don't think I have been on.
Yes, you have. We talked about relationships.
Oh, yes, that's right. I forgot about that one episode.
And you have been on the Beer and Bullshit podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Which me and Shawn were also on at a separate time for separate things.
Oh, that seems like so long ago. That was taken in original Jump City.
That was taken in original Jump City, yeah.
But this is the first one where I was like a partial co-host.
Yeah, but
/ guest star.
Yeah, but this is the 3 podcasts you've been on.
Yeah. I really liked that in this one, though, that I got to do my own research and then show you guys the stuff that I learned.
Yes, that was awesome.
Which sounds kind of dumb, but it was kind of like the fun part of school.
No, I totally understand. You were our comic book expert.
It was pretty fun. Yeah. I'm going to be sad that doesn't happen anymore.
Well, you know what? I've been thinking about it a lot, and I love pop culture, and I hate that we had to shut down Rusted Robot because of all the copyright issues. So if we do a podcast in the future, when we do a podcast in the future, we just won't put it. We won't put in any clips, and that way we won't get banned by Spotify. I
do know some music people who I think might be willing to make you music.
Ooh, that could be helpful.
That could be fun.
Yes, definitely. We will we'll definitely discuss this offline and plan something for the future.
That sounds like a lot of fun. You know what else we could add?
What's that?
Kind of like a book club, but with comic books.
Totally. We can do all kinds of things. It'll be a totally new, wide open format, totally different, but still kind of the same because it's us.
That would be fun.
Yes. So, guys, I wanted to thank you for being part of the podcast these last 5+ years. It's been an honor.
Thank you for having us, Shawn. It has been lots of fun.
It's been loads of fun, yeah.
All right. Wasn't that amazing? A lot of information, a lot of fun, and who knows what we're going to be doing in the future. I have got no idea whatsoever, but like I said, I love podcasting. I would do it full time if I could. That's the one thing I never got was sponsorship. There was the one guy who sold weird knitted ties, and we tried to promote him for a few months, but we never got any money from that. I don't think anybody bought his ties. I looked at the website and they were crap, but maybe somebody likes knitted ties. Maybe somebody bought something, but I never got anything from it. But I have, over the years, received some PayPal donations. I did open up a Patreon account, but I never promoted it really. I don't know how it works, and nobody ever sent me anything. But about a year ago, I opened up a coffee account. That's ko-fi.com, and there's a support link for that. And I did get a bunch of support $3 coffees from a bunch of people, actually, because that's how that works. You just send a $3 coffee to help support the show. And if any of you want to do that before the show ends, that would be great. ko-fi.com/rusted soul. We still have, of course, the Soul Forge podcast, and that's not going anywhere because there's no violation or copyright strikes on that, thank goodness. So that's going to continue. You'll still have that. You can hear me there. You can hear me on the Cosmic Pizza podcast. And actually, why don't we go ahead and play another recording from somebody else? Let's see who we've done. We did Robin. We did Jeremy. I've read Dan's email and Richard's link and Sparky and Gun's email. And there's 2 left. We've got one from Paul and we've got one from Stephen Jarman. So let's play Stephen Jarman's clip right here.
Hey, Shawn and the Rusted Robot podcast audience. We heard you're going away, and us over at the Play on Nerds Network, Muppet Trek, Real Opposition, and Sappy Crap are real sad about it.
Yeah, I've been listening to your show now for, I guess, the entire time it's been on, for 7 years now. I think it's something like that. And you were part of what inspired me to start podcasting. And I'm glad that you're still podcasting with the Cosmic Pizza podcast and the Soul Forge, which I do the intro for, by the way, the Soul Forge podcast.
Just to mention that. So we're sad to see Rusted Robot go. You grew from a small podcast with big dreams about talking about robots and blossomed into such a beautiful young woman.
Yes. And through several different young women. We won't go there, but yeah, Shawn, it's grown from you and other co-hosts, and you've always tried to make it happen no matter what, and you're always working with different people and collaborating and guesting on shows and really doing the hustle and going out to conventions, and you got celebrity intros and outros and stuff for your podcast. Very impressive work, and something we should all aspire to be that dedicated to our show. And we're sorry to see it go.
So Shawn, thanks for all the casts. I'm sure we'll cross paths again.
Oh yeah.
And keep on going. And I think that this deserves us each doing an Admiral Adama impression. Rusted Robot Podcast. Think about it.
The Rusted Robot Podcast. Admiral Adama, where's my toilet? Think about it.
Rusted Robot Podcast. Think about it. Think about it.
Think about it. Thanks, Shawn.
Right, Shawn.
And
We'll
keep
see you
podcasting.
around.
Keep it up, man. Bye.
And that was also awesome. That really moved me a lot, you guys. That was fantastic. And listeners, if you haven't caught any of the Play on Nerds shows, you definitely owe it to yourself to do so. I've been talking them up for the last 7 years. Hopefully I've driven some listeners over there. I don't know if I have, because that's one thing we don't get a lot of is feedback. We've gotten some over the years. Not a whole heck of a lot, but some. And it's been good. And well, we always appreciate it. Let's see what else I can talk to you about here. Let's see, I talked about the quirky starts that I'm going to play at the end. Oh, the robot profiles. Remember at the beginning for the first 100 or 200 episodes, I did a robot profile in every episode?
Now we get to talk about my favorite subject, the robot profile.
Either talking about a real robot or a pop culture robot. Well, we ran out of robots, and so we didn't actually end up doing that anymore. But I watched a movie last night on Netflix, and I think you guys should watch it. It's called Love and Monsters, and there's a robot in it called Mavis. The I is a 1, so MAV1S. And if this was a regular show, I would do a whole robot profile on it. But I'm not going to because I didn't research it, but I watched the movie, and it's basically about the apocalypse, the end of the world, and there's colonies around, and there's radioactive monsters because of an asteroid and all the fallout from the nuclear bombs that tried to destroy it, and most of humanity's destroyed, and it's a lot of fun. It's a 2-hour movie, but it's cute, and it's predictable as heck, but that doesn't matter. It's fine. It's good. So there you go. And what else? What else we got here that I wanted to talk about? How about all the different segments that we've done over the years? Like when we first started, we had, it was general geekery, general pop culture, and then it sort of became a pop culture news show. And we would talk a lot about The Flash and the Arrow, Brigitte and I would. And then we expanded. We did some movie reviews and all kinds of other different things. We tried to do a funny internet radio show. That's episode 24, which unfortunately, because there's music in it, I had to take off the thing, so you can't listen to it anymore. But I do have the MP3 file, so there's that. Then we had the life celebration, because we'd always talk about dead celebrities, and that became a running joke with me and Josh and Kitty, how I would always laugh when we were talking about dead celebrities. It wasn't funny, but it was more of a nerve thing. And then we had the life celebration segment for people who hadn't died yet, but were old and probably would. So that was a thing that didn't last very long, but we did it randomly. I don't think I did too many Rusted run-on cinema segments. That was a thing that I tried to get going, which was where you take a bunch of movie titles and you just string them all together for as long as you can. So something like Guardians of the Galaxy Quest for Fire in the Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow Never Dies. So, do I have to explain it? Maybe I will, just to continue on. So, Guardians of the Galaxy, Galaxy Quest, Quest for Fire, Fire in the Sky, Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow, Tomorrow Never Dies. So that's just a bunch of random movies that you can all string together with the titles. And I don't know, I never did too many of those, but it was a fun little thing, and so many different little segments. I kind of saw Rusted Robot as the unofficial Star Trek podcast, and the funny part about that was talking with Josh about Star Trek, because he's a big Voyager fan, which is my least favorite, and I love Deep Space Nine, but that was his least favorite, and then I couldn't get him to watch Star Trek Discovery beyond episode 5. Star Trek Discovery.
Black alert. Black alert.
Black alert. Always had to put that in for extra content for you folks out there in podcast land, just to keep it interesting and fun. I don't know if I have any more celebrity clips to throw in, but if I do, I'm going to throw in a couple right here.
What are you? I'm Batman. I want you to tell all your friends about me.
And if not, we'll just continue on with talking about different things. I did want to give a special shout out to Jarek on Twitter, also known as Mike. I'm going to miss Mike's tweets about all the podcasts that he listens to, because he is an amazing podcast listener. He gobbles them all up, and then he tweets about what episode and what show that he's listened to. So I would always retweet those, well, when I remembered to go on Twitter, because I really gave that up in the last few years. But a special thank you to Mike for always shouting out and tweeting all the different podcasts that he listened to. The one thing I've never been able to get Mike to do is switch over to the Soul Forge podcast, because it's not super geeky. It's more about life and love and whatever. But because I'm not doing pop culture Rusted Robot stuff anymore, I'm going to have to geek it up a little bit over there in Soul Forge land. So Mike, now that you have a space that is being vacated by Rusted Robot, I would appreciate it if you would go and subscribe to Soul Forge Podcast. Even if you don't listen to them, just download them. I could always use the numbers. That's important. Like I said in the beginning of Rusted Robot, 400, 500, 600 downloads per episode. And the last couple years, it's really dropped off to like in the hundreds and even in the 50s sometimes. And I think the pandemic had something to do with that. And we always dropped off number-wise in the summer because people are out doing things and don't have time to listen to podcasts. But like I said, week after week, we're always there. Let me do some quick calculations here. So I've got, as of this recording, there's only 25 episodes on the website, but I had 330 regular episodes and about 15 midweek supplementals. Let's see here. If I pull up a calculator, let's see. There's 52 weeks a year times 7 is 364 plus, let's say, another, let's go with 20 weeks for this year so far. Maybe we'll make it 15. So let's see. That should be about 380 episodes plus the midweek supplementals. Only had 330 because I did miss some time. I couldn't do it every friggin' week. I wanted to, but I couldn't always do it because, life gets in the way. And I took those 4 months off between the end of my co-hosting with the first host and then the startup with Josh and Kitty and all them guys. And I was trying to calculate how much time exactly I have spent on the Rusted Robot podcast. Because if you average each episode roughly an hour and maybe 2 hours of recording time by the time you got all your stuff together. And then if an episode was an hour, it would usually take between 2 and 3 hours to edit the thing and then upload it and then promote it and all that kind of stuff. And as time went on, I got really pretty good at it, actually. And a 1 hour episode could take 2 hours sometimes if I didn't fill it with all kinds of different clips and different things. There was occasionally a time or two where I said, we're not going to edit anything this week and we're just going to throw it out there. And I would do that and it would be quick and simple and easy. But most of the time I tried to put out the highest quality product that I could. I remember when editing episode, I think 19, The Next Generation of Geek, I had all kinds of clips and it took the better part of 8 or 10 hours just to edit that thing. And I was exhausted, but it was highly successful. It was hugely downloaded. Let me see if I can just find it here in my list of things. If I still have it, if I didn't take it off the thing, that would have been April 2014, The Next Generation of Geek. Yes, 459 downloads. That is true. So that was pretty awesome. Let's see what else we had. Yeah, I guess that's it. So if my calculations are correct, and I've got about 400 hours roughly of episodes out there at one point, and probably I've spent between 3,000 and 4,000 hours altogether on the podcast. That's a lot. Does that make me professional? Not necessarily, because I even now I'm still learning different tips and tricks for editing. There's lots. So once I learned about compression and noise reduction and things, everything got better. For years and years, we recorded on a $20 microphone on an old iPad, and that was okay, but the sound quality was never great. We usually recorded in Josh and Kitty's kitchen, so never any soundproofing or deadening for sound. And then I got this thing that I'm recording on, and it's pretty awesome, actually. So the sound quality is way better. Okay. Looks like I have one more clip to put in, and that's from Paul. So let's go ahead and play that right now.
Hello and welcome to the last episode of the UK Correspondent. My name is Paul, and it is with a heavy heart that I have heard from Shawn that he was shutting down the Rusted Robot podcast. I have listened to all of the episodes, and even appeared on a few. I remember hearing about the Rusted Robot podcast from my then co-host Sina Alvarado, who had interviewed Shawn and Brigitte for the 10 Forward podcast. I tuned in and listened to a few episodes and decided to send over a few clips as their UK correspondent. Little did I realise that Shawn had plans to podcast forever. I still do not know to this day how someone can come up with enough material for over 300 shows, and apart from the small break, to do it consistently for 7 years. I then found out that Shawn lived in the remote Canadian town of Timmins, Ontario, and that it all fell into place. There's not much to do up there other than podcast. 7 years and 300 episodes. The rest of us podcasters, well...
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
And I knew then that
this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Having known Shawn for the best part of 7 years, I have to say that I am the richer for it. His wit, his love of all things geek and all things robot, his love of Star Trek and sci-fi have made him a great friend, and although he won't be appearing on the Rusted Robot, he will still keep the Soulforge fires burning, and I get to speak to him every week whilst recording the Cosmic Pizza podcast. The trouble with recording podcasts is knowing when to put in material that is copyright and how much you can use. I told Shawn if he continued to put stuff in, they will be
coming to get you.
He said to me,
frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
And sure enough, someone up above thought,
what we're dealing with here is a complete lack of respect for the law.
I have to say though, in a world that is going through a pandemic at the moment, this following speech reminded me about how petty officialdom can be when it comes to banning podcasts that promote films, music and TV shows for free, leaving the rights holders to reap the monetary rewards have to pay for this stuff.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know the air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value. So, I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!
If enough podcasters made a fuss over this, then I'm sure the podcast hosts would back off the amateur podcasters. How many of you have lent a book to another person? You know this is illegal, right? It says so on the front of every book. But how many people have been prosecuted for lending a book? How many people have been arrested for watching a YouTube video of a song? If the source material is already out there and has been out there for a long time, then don't come after us. Go after the first person to put it on the net in the first place. Shawn, I have 3 things to say to you.
1, bide your time. 2, keep your nose clean. And 3, don't let the bastards grind you down.
And sadly, just like that, 300 episodes, 400 hours of recording, and well over 1,000 hours of editing disappears.
All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain. Time to die.
And the ironic thing is, all of the material I put in to this little clip, I do not own. But does it matter? Who's it hurting? I'm not paying for it. Nobody's paying to listen to it. It's all out there on the internet anyway. If you don't hear it from me, you'll hear it from somewhere else. But hey, Shawn's shutting this podcast down, so in a few weeks' time, this will be gone. But don't forget, you can still hear Shawn on the Soulforge podcast and on the Cosmic Pizza podcast. And maybe another podcast in the future. Keep on podcasting, Shawn. And just like Ronnie Barker said, don't let the bastards grind you down. Rusted Robot Podcast. Goodbye farewell, and amen.
And that was so wow. I wasn't crying though. I told you it's dusty in here. I'm gonna miss all of this. Like, it's been such a part of my life for so long that really 7.5 years almost of podcasting steadily. And most podcasts apparently fade out after 7 episodes. And we've hit 7+ years, which has been fantastic. And I'm sure there's things I'm forgetting to talk about, but really, there you go. Rivet Oxide the Third. That is the logo for the podcast. I was going to bring that up at the beginning, but I forgot. So the robot on the logo that Andrew made for me. We did a contest or something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but we talked about it on the show, and we had listener suggestions, and so we called it Rivet Oxide the Third, because he's the rusty robot. And why the third? Because it sounded cool. And that's how, when we did movie reviews, we would give it rivets out of 10. Was that a good movie? Yeah, it was. It was pretty good. I give it 8 rivets out of 10. So that's just another thing that I wanted to bring up. And I talked about the love of pop culture and celebrity encounters. I think I've played all the voice clips from all the different people. I think I have played all the different celebrities. I didn't play some old promos, though, for the Rusted Robot podcast that I used to do before we joined the ESO network in April of 2018. So here, I'm just going to play a couple promos for the podcast that we created, I think, in 2014.
We are the Rusted Robot Podcast. Lower your shields and surrender your minds. We will add your MP3 recordings and opinion on geekery to our own. We will adapt to embrace this culture. Resistance is futile.
It's the Borg.
Captain, they've adapted.
Commander Adama, Cybermen, Daleks, and Cylons are fast approaching. Jump gates forming in multiple sectors, and the doctor's nowhere to be found. What are we going to do?
Tune into the Rusted Robot Podcast at therustedrobot.podbean.com and on the iTunes Store. Shawn and Brigitte Vanderloo's love for all things geekery and robots are our only hope.
Oh boy.
Get rusted today.
Robots. Cyborgs.
Androids.
Oh my.
Rusted Robot.
What are you guys doing?
Huh?
What are you guys doing?
Listening to static.
What?
Listening to static.
Kate, what?
Didn't you know all the cool kids are doing it?
Hey guys, guess what? I found something even cooler than static.
Cooler than static?
Nothing's cooler than static.
Yup, it's the Rusted Robot Podcast. So cool, it's better than static.
The Rusted Robot Podcast. It's better than static. No robots were harmed in the making of this commercial. No substitutions, revolts may vary.
Hi. This is Admiral Adama.
My name's Robert J. Sawyer.
This is Cena Grace. Hey, this is Stephen Amell.
Hey, this is Dr. Trek, Larry Nemechek.
I'm hanging with Shawn and Brigitte. They're telling all about general geekery.
And you are listening to the Rusted
Robot
Podcast.
The #1 rated robot-related podcast
in Northern Ontario.
You should be following them on Twitter.
Keep listening.
Don't forget to follow them on Twitter.
Subscribe on iTunes.
therustedrobot.podbean.com.
The Rusted Robot Podcast. Think about it.
Rusted Robot.
And there you have it. So I think I have loaded this podcast up with as many different clips and sound bites and everything that I could possibly find. I won't be able to use them again unless we do Rusted Robot Redux, Rusted Robot Rebuilt, Rusted Robot Rejuvenation. I don't know what we'll call it, if we'll call it anything. I was going to keep the Podbean website just to keep the RRS feed so that you guys can always follow me. But I'm not going to because it's expensive. It's going to save me $140 a year by getting rid of this website. But like I said, I would love for you guys to all keep in touch. Guys and girls, sorry, folks, gang, rusties, rustonauts, rusticles, whatever you guys call yourself. If you don't call yourself anything, that's fine too. But if you haven't, make sure you join the Facebook group and page. The email is always there, like I said. What else? Follow me on YouTube. So all the episodes are there from episode 152 and beyond, except for some that didn't get uploaded for some reason. And if I ever do another pop culture podcast, you'll hear about it either on SoulForge or Cosmic Pizza or on the Facebook page for Rusted Robot, because I'm not getting rid of that stuff. It's been a part of my life for 7+ years, and it's a lot of fun. So I don't want that to go away. But that's basically it. I think I've rambled long enough. If you've made it this far, I appreciate it. I want to thank you all for 7+ years. If you met me halfway, that's awesome. If you have been there from the very beginning, like Richard and other listeners, that's fantastic as well. I don't want to stop talking. I don't want this podcast to end. But like they say, 3 strikes and you're out, and I'm already up to 2. So I'd rather not have that happen. So I'm going to finish my recording. I'm going to edit it. I'm going to upload the thing. And basically it's going to be there for 2 or 3 weeks. And then I'm going to shut the whole thing down. rustedrobot.podbean.com will be no more. But like I said, I've got all the MP3 files. I've got the Facebook page, the Twitter, the email, which I'm not getting rid of any of that stuff. So that's basically it. In one of our anniversary shows, I did a whole compilation of that year's and remembers, because that was always a very important thing. It just happened organically. I started it at the beginning, and I think the first one, if I remember correctly, was, and remember, so long and thanks for all the fish. And Brigitte would always say, so say we all. And it just continued. But I ran out of pop culture things to do, so I had to do some inspirational stuff and other things and voice clips and whatever. So I'm going to leave you with an and remember from Captain Kirk's dying breath, which pretty much sums up how amazing this podcast has been, the experience. I'm sure I'm forgetting to say things. I'm sure I'll edit it and I'll be like, oh, I should have said this. I should have said that. But anyway, just thank you all for being here. Thanks for being part of the Rusted team. And remember, you guys are all awesome. And I'm going to play all the quirky starts now after the end credits. And stay tuned to the very end, because I'm not going to play the ESO sign out like I'm supposed to. I'm going to play Kitty's little thing at the end that we used to do before we joined the ESO network. So sorry about that, Mike, but this is the final show, so I'm just going to do what I want, much like at the very beginning when I used Al Kessel's opening clip there. And yeah, so that's basically it. I'm sure I'm forgetting to mention Rick Moyer and Pete, Peter, and Pierre, and Ryan, and Jason, and Jen, and Angela, and Andrew, and who else? Like, so many people have been a part of this from the very beginning. Like, all the people who sent in the voice clips and all that stuff. You guys are all amazing. All you people out there in podcast land. You can tell I'm just rambling, so I don't finish this off, but I got to, because, well, I got to edit it up and get it out there for all you folks. So thanks again for everything. Take care, and remember.
Did we do it? We make a difference.
Oh, yes. We made a difference. Thank you.
At least I could do. For the captain of the Enterprise. It was fun.
Or mine.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Rusted Robot Podcast. Your support is greatly appreciated, and we hope you'll tune in again next time. Remember that you can visit therustedrobot.podbean.com for all of our social media links, and don't forget to share the show with everyone you know. The Rusted Robot Podcast is your best source for geek-style pop culture news.
I could do this all day.
Please consult your physician prior to listening to the Rusted Robot Podcast if you are prone to heart conditions or are currently taking blood pressure medication.
The opinions expressed on the Rusted Robot Podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of the Rusted Robot Podcast, its hosts, or its affiliates.
The Rusted Robot Podcast has been recorded before a live studio audience.
Hey you. Yeah, you. You listening to the Rusted Robot Podcast. Turn it up loud so those around you can enjoy the show. Share it with your friends. Turn it up loud.
The Rusted Robot Podcast is committed to the highest standards of programming. We're committed to you, the listener, in our broadcast practices. If you have any questions or concerns about the programming standards of the Rusted Robot Podcast or this station, please write to the Canadian Standards Broadcast Council at 123 Fake Street, Ottawa, Ontario, LOLOLO, or visit them online at thiswebsitedoesn'texist.com.
Warning! This product is not intended for use by women who are pregnant or breastfeeding, or persons with or at risk of heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, or taking medication for depression or asthma. The Rusted Robot is addictive and habit-forming, and it is very toxic by inhalation. The Rusted Robot can increase your heart rate and blood pressure and cause dizziness, nausea, and stomach pain. Inhalation of this product may aggravate existing respiratory conditions. When your customers demand quality, start with the Rusted Robot. Fire-resistant and water-repellent, the Rusted Robot is easy to work with, cuts easily with a serrated knife, and fits snugly without sagging. For your next project, recommend the Rusted Robot for exterior walls, attics, and crawl spaces, and Rivets Ready Room for soundproofing interior walls and ceilings between floors. The Rusted Robot Podcast. The Rusted Robot Podcast has been rigorously tested by leading ear, nose, and throat physicians and audiologists who have unanimously agreed that the sound quality and output in many cases far exceeds that of the more expensive podcasts. At the Rusted Robot Podcast, we are focused on making robot history. We have the largest robo-research program in the nation, and many of today's most innovative ideas, now considered the standard worldwide, originated at the Rusted Robot. It's why we rank first in northeastern Ontario. To learn more about the breakthroughs we're making every day, visit therustedrobot.podbean.com. The Rusted Robot Podcast is 100% waterproof, paintable in 30 minutes, water-resistant in 30 minutes, and can be applied in extreme temperatures. Silicones can't do that. With a shrink-proof and crack-proof guarantee, the Rusted Robot Podcast is formulated to stand the test of time. Unlike other podcasts, The Rusted Robot is the only podcast with no late fees, no penalty rate, and no annual fee. Ever. There, that's 3 fewer things to worry about. The Rusted Robot. What's in your iPod? Welcome to the Rusted Robot Podcast, where everything's made up and the points don't matter. Whose podcast is it anyway?
The Rusted Robot knows when you enter or leave a room, turning on and off automatically. The Rusted Robot monitors the room's temperature and humidity, adjusting when conditions change. The Rusted Robot learns your comfort preferences, tailoring those adjustments to what you find comfortable. Now, the world's most energy-efficient podcast is also the smartest.
Relieves more symptoms than you can shake a spoon at. The Rusted Robot Podcast. It sounds awful, but it works. Make every trip an adventure with the Rusted Robot. Its power liftgate opens to an expansive cargo space and split folding rear seats, making it the perfect companion for any excursion. With advanced aerodynamics, striking design details, and an exceptional starting price, it's everything you could want and more in a podcast. Making entertaining appear effortless is an art that we've pretty much nailed, whether you're hosting a party or making a weekend dinner. The Rusted Robot team has an impressive selection of episodes that will help you spend less time in the kitchen and more time having a good time. Check out therustedrobot.podbean.com. Crave more. Presenting a world of exceptional quality and beauty in the Rusted Robot tradition, drawing on over 4 decades of iconic design, each one-of-a-kind episode meticulously crafted from the finest materials to perform best in class, from impeccable coverage to long-lasting brilliance.
The invention of the year is great news for your ears. The Rusted Robot is simple to use, hard to see, and easy to afford. It's like reading glasses for your ears. New, now with more power and clarity.
Go on a taste vacation. The Rusted Robot sends your taste buds packing for a tropical flavor getaway. Plus, it's 50 calories per serving. Also, try an original flavor.
The Rusted Robot Podcast is not a safe alternative to cigarettes.
This has been a Valley of Vanderloo podcast production, all rights reserved.
This transmission ends now.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.